Cubs slide continues, but what can they do to fix it? And where was Owen Caissie in the lineup yesterday? This team has an anemic offense. Their three biggest stars struggling. We're going to get into all that right here on the Cubs baseball channel. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, get in the comments section. Tell me what you guys think. Through all of this, though, the Cubs are still one of those teams that if the season ended today, they'd make the playoffs. But what are their chances to make the playoffs? Should you start to panic yet? I know some of you guys are. I'm going to tell you why not. Coming up. What do you say, everybody? Mick Gillespie, Cubs baseball channel. And again, thank you guys for being here and hanging out. Love it when you get in the comments section and love it when you find me on the socials at Broadcaster Mick. All right, let's talk about another loss. And it was like another loss where I'm looking and I'm going, didn't I just see this game in Toronto yesterday? Isn't this the game that we had a couple days ago? You know, the starting pitching's great and no one can score any runs. And here was my solution. Was Owen Caissie. I loved the fact that they brought Owen Caissie up. As a matter of fact, not only would I have Owen Caissie up, I'd have Moises Ballesteros up right now. But what's going to happen with this team if they don't start scoring runs? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that even though Caissie went 0 for 4, I thought he provided a jump a little bit. I something to watch. Somebody in that lineup that's going to get some big hits, and you could feel it, or at least energize the players around them. I was surprised that the Cubs didn't put him in the lineup, and I know Craig Counsell keeps saying, well, it's hard to find at bats, you know. How's it hard to find at bats, Craig? There's a lot of at bats for this team because they're not doing anything at the plate. Let me run through a couple of guys, and I'm not even going to talk about Ian Happ, and I'm not going to talk about Dansby Swanson because we knew who they were, right? So they're exactly where they always are. And actually, when you look at it, maybe even a little bit better this year than normal, right? Kyle Tucker, he's the star of the team. Since August 4th, in those 6 games, he's 3 for 22. Body language stinks. Ground ball outs, not getting the ball in the air. Weak contact. We talked about his bat speed going down. Now, I know that they put him in the DH spot to kind of give him the day off from the field. Guy needs to sit for a couple days. He looks tired. He's not productive. I think he'll figure it out, but right now, nothing going on at all. Terrible on that road trip. Why not put Owen Caissie in the outfield, let him play? Kid's 23 years old and really hungry right now, but they did. Then there's Seiya Suzuki. Not quite as bad as Pete Crow-Armstrong, who we're going to talk about, and Tucker, but he's got 1 home run since July 19th. You know, and this team thrives on the home runs. It feels like that without the home run ball, that they're really one-dimensional. Maybe with the home run ball, you know, and you got to figure out other ways to score. When they were playing their best baseball, it wasn't just the home run ball. It was getting base hits and moving runners. And how excited were you guys when Dansby Swanson laid down a bunt? Yeah, it turned into a hit or actually an error, but he got on base. He moved the runners. It was like a sack. It was a sack with an error on the catcher. Took a weird bounce. And then Matt Shaw comes up. They got him buried down in the bottom of the lineup. Maybe move him up. You know, maybe him and Nico need to be higher in the lineup. They're the guys producing right now. Maybe you slot some of the other guys down. I feel like in baseball, so much of what you do with your lineup is dependent on what your contract is, right? Well, Dansby Swanson's paid this $177 million. He's playing shortstop every day, even when he's in a slump. You know, Ian Happ, no trade clause. He's paid this much money. It was 16 or something million a year to play left field, and he's out there every day. Even when he goes through his stretches, which you guys are familiar with, he gets on hot streaks and he gets on cold streaks, and he's on a cold streak. You know, but it feels like everybody else is right now. But there's nothing you can do about it. When Tony La Russa, who managed the A's and the Cardinals to the World Series, one thing I always liked about him was it didn't matter. He was just going to put the best players in. Whoever's hot. Like, hey, I might have to sit down. I mean, not Albert Pujols, but some of the other guys, you know, like, because at the end of the day, you're just trying to win that particular game and then move on to the next one and then move on to the next one. And I know the logic is, well, you live with those guys, you die with those guys. It feels like the dying right now is because they're tired. And then the last guy I'm going to talk about actually got a couple hits in the game yesterday, and that's Crow-Armstrong. He came in after sitting a game, and he got a couple of hits. He doesn't look right. Boog Shambi pointed that out on the broadcast when he was going after a ball in the gap, and I noticed it right away too. And then he got hit by a pitch to make things worse. Whether he was looking for Ian Happ, who could easily run into him in the outfield, or he was something was wrong. Maybe he just got hit by the pitch and that hurt. I don't know. But at least he got a couple of hits in the game. But they sat him. You got to all these guys. And I'm going to go back to what Rhino told me. Sometimes you're better off going through this stuff because when you get out of it, you figured it out. Rhino was like, what was it, like 1 for 32 or something to start his career? He talked about that stuff a lot. This team needs to find that before it's too late. They've lost 3 consecutive series, and now they lost another game that they should have won to a bad Pirates team. And it's so frustrating right now. And I'll tell you what the real frustrating part about it is that the starting pitching continues to dominate. I mean, even with one starter one spot in the rotation where you really don't have a starter, the Cubs still have the best ERA over the last how many days? How many games have they blown that Matthew Boyd could be contending for a Cy Young? If the win total jumped up for him, who knows, right? And he's not wowing you out there, but he does everything he can to get you a win, and they just don't score him any runs, right? And then the pitching from Colin Ray yesterday was good enough. Bullpen gave up 1 home run, and you're going to lose because the team's not scoring any runs. Shota Imanaga's been great. Cade Horton, the guy went 29 consecutive innings without giving up a run. And who knows what things are going to look like with Javier Assad and Jamison Tyone returning. And I'm telling you right now, Michael Soroka, is he going to even be a part of this? I'm curious. 2 innings, you're hurt, and the pitching isn't the issue right now. Whose spot are you going to give up? Maybe somebody out of the bullpen. I don't blame the bullpen for giving up a run. It happens. It happens in the game. I blame the offense for not being able to do more than win on home runs. And now that they're not hitting any, they are scuffling, and somebody needs to do something. And I look at the lack of energy that this team has at the plate. And that's why I pushed for Owen Caissie. That's why I have Moises Ballesteros up there. Maybe that's why I'd look at a Jonathan Long, all these guys that have hit at every level. Maybe you get them up there and you see what they can do. Because it's not going to last if they keep losing. Now, what I will say is this. Is that you look at Fangraphs right now, and the Cubs playoff odds are still astronomical, 95%, right? 88% chance to clinch a wild card, 7% the division, which has been a major shift now that the Brewers just win every single day. The thing that helps the Cubs right now is that there's other teams that were really good that are struggling too. No one worse than the Mets. Because the Mets are going through this now as well. The difference is that the Mets haven't figured out a way to win at least that one game in the series. They're getting swept. And so all of a sudden now they're about to fall out of, or have already fallen out, depending on when you're watching this, the 3 teams that make the wild card. How about the Dodgers? You go out and spend $1 billion, and the Padres have passed you. And you know that team's going to put it together at some point. But they're struggling too. So the teams that dominated in the first half are struggling, and some of the teams that weren't great in the first half are playing better. That's how a 162-game season works. And for the Cubs, they've got to figure out a way to get that second wind because they're getting tore up right now by the dog days. But it doesn't mean that this season's over. It just means that they're going through a bad stretch. And the way that they get out of this stretch is going to determine how their season turns out. And if they don't make the playoffs, even though Jed Hoyer got an extension, but doesn't that put him right back on the hot seat again? So it felt like once that extension happened, this team's gone down the tube. I don't even know if that's true. It just feels like that. There's a long way to go before the season's over, but the Cubs need to find some wins, and they need to find them fast. And the only way to do that is to get some production from the bats and hope that the starting pitching continues to be as good as it's been. Because that's why I feel like this team's so dangerous. They kind of remind me of some of those Giants teams that were part of their dynasty, where they just kind of couldn't score. And then all of a sudden, but they pitched, then they got hot at the right time and they would win World Series. Maybe that's this team. Or, maybe it's one of these teams, and some of you guys think so, that's going to end up falling right out of the playoffs because they can't win. All right, Cubs back at Wrigley today at 1:20. Shota Imanaga, 8-5, 3.19 ERA. Shota day out on the mound. Mike Burrows pitching for the Pirates. He's 1-4 with a 4.66 ERA. And the Cubs are going to try to figure out a way to get back on track again. But thank you guys for being part of the channel. I thank you every day. I know it's tough. I talk to some of you guys like, I can't even wake up and think about it. I'm not watching the Cubs today. Hey, take the good with the bad. Because if this turns out to be one of those seasons where they get hot at the end, you want to be able to say, hey, man, I was with them the entire time. So we're trying to be with them, but it is frustrating. Tell me what you guys think, though, in the comments section. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, and we'll do it again tomorrow. And appreciate all you guys for hanging out. Go Cubs.